And hopefully in some sort of position. See the Fords having a bit of a battle between themselves. Harry Tincknell, Joey Hand and Scott Dixon keeping a watching brief behind.
Yeah, Hand jumped over the inside curve there. Got a very good run on Tincknell. Tincknell keeping well away from the curbs, but Hand used the momentum to drag up behind him, used the slipstream, and is now trying to have the same. Oh, I think Harry had to get off the throttle there coming out of the chicane.
So I've obviously missed something here, because the Fords were the closest challengers to the Porsches, and now all of a sudden they've slipped behind BMWs and Giovinazzi, Rockefeller. So was that over that safety car period? They get caught out.
And the Corvettes that were almost nowhere in qualifying again are actually starting to produce good race pace, as they so often do.
Yeah, the 63 car was thereabouts, but you know, the Fords have all. Ooh.
Just saw James Collado not looking happy, and the 71 car goes back in. That's Sam Bird, and you saw his teammate not looking very happy either.
Yeah, that's definitely not good. No. I mean, they got a penalty, didn't they? They had a 3 penalty, and that's put them back already, and this is just going from bad to worse for that team.
51 had a puncture, didn't it? So they're down even behind the 71 car, 12th and 13th for AF Corsa's lead contenders.
I think, coming back to what you said, the Ferrari was getting stronger and stronger all the way through. The BMW hung on from about maybe 45 minutes into the race and is getting better, whereas the rest of the time has sort of been the shakeout with the various safety cars. And then the scrap after the safety car, which I'm not sure if you saw, it was absolutely incredible, because you know, everybody was bunched up, and it was like the last lap of a Formula Ford race at Snetterton. If anyone's listening in that knows what I'm talking about there, it was just incredible.
If you do, can you just tweet us the answer?
Yeah, no, it's been this whole race has been brilliant, isn't it? The ding-dong battle all the way through. The gaps up at the front, unfortunately, have opened up, haven't they? Those 3 categories, you know, P1, obviously, I think we've all alluded to the fact that the Toyotas are racing to a strategy, and I think, Alan, you made a really good point that if you separated them, it's probably a safer situation for everybody, and it wouldn't look so orchestrated in some way, the way, you know, the overtaking moves. There's a clear lift from the car in front, and it's happened both ways. It's not just been one car ahead of the other. Both have done it, but the gap between them and SMP is quite big. Actually, G-Drive continue to just blitz that category, haven't they? 1 minute 13 now, the lead in LMP2.
Yeah, but it's been about a minute from quite early on, and since then it's sort of ebbed and flowed around in about that minute. They haven't been able to pull it out very much since they got to that point.
Yeah, they've got Roman Rusinov in there, who is off their 3 drivers. He's been the one who's slightly behind. So I think their strategy is very much about get him to hold position, maintain that gap, and he's doing a good job of it. It has to be said. He, you know, he's able to rattle off those low 3 minute 30-ish laps and keep a decent pace going.
He certainly is. But this is the battle of the moment, down through the S's.
Yeah, we've got
5 GTE cars.
Yeah, it is, and they're all for position. I think it's, you know, that's not something we see very often, is it? After 5 hours of racing, 5 cars, nose to tail, you know, and on all jockey for position. That's Ford in the slipstream now, isn't he? He's got her Tête Rouge. He's in the tow.
Yeah, he does like jumping that inside apex curve, and it gives him the run. That's exactly what he did on Tincknell last time, and he's in the slipstream with the Corvette. Will he be able to get down the inside, or I would presume the Corvette is going to... No, he's done it.
He's got him there.
Slid down the inside.
Yeah, he's gone over the crown and the road to the inside and gets him on the brakes. In the end, he's able to even move back ahead of him. So clearly, that run out of Tête Rouge and the slipstream, as we use a lot of curve there again, Alan, on the way out, doesn't he?
He was jumping. You heard it was an onboard previous lap there, and you heard it pattering over. There's like little sleeping policemen on the inside, pattering over them. Now, the thing that I would be going through my mind is, remember what happened with the right rear suspension of the 66 car, which failed. And do you want to be abusing the curbs like that as the Corvette has another look to come back down the inside, but not going to be able to do it?
Probably not. We've been joined in the commentary box. Martin Haven has rather bravely left the commentary box with 3 racing drivers. This could go badly wrong, couldn't it?
Well, I think we should shut the door and just enjoy the rest of it. Johnny Molam, Mr. Johnny Molam, you know more probably about this category in GTE than either of us. from having raced in GTs for such a long period of your Le Mans career and racing career?
Every year I come back here and I just watch this GT race and I love it. It always for me is the class to watch, and you're going to come back in about what, 18 hours time and you'll see a very similar picture, I'm pretty sure, in terms of a train of GTE cars all fighting. And talking about what you were saying about using the curbs, absolutely, that's what you need to do. You're absolutely on it every lap, and these cars have had to be built to withstand that kind of abuse, and that's what they're doing all the time. And I've seen that a number of times out of the second chicane as well, just running up over that curb, and it just thumps the bottom of the car. There's a huge shock going through the shock absorbers, and they're just taking it lap after lap. It just shows you the engineering quality, as we see the Fords here having a really good fight. They're so stable down into Mulsanne under braking, Karun, I noticed.
Yeah, there was Dixon on Tinknell there. He had a little look, and Harry went to the inside and covered him off. And yeah, you don't want to be taking a risky move into Indianapolis against your teammate, that's for sure. But
I think the Ford boys are pretty good at not going to be able to take each other out, I think. I'm not so sure, having watched earlier on about the Porsches, that looked a pretty big fight earlier on, didn't it? Between Esther and Bruni in particular. I mean, he was aggressively hassling, wasn't he?
I think when you get to that situation, you know, both of those guys feel that they were in a position to win the race. One car was probably going to do it. It's the same with the two Toyotas, and that's what breeds internal fights. When you're maybe hanging on a little bit, then it's a little bit different too.
So on the screen, it's Juan Pablo Montoya going down the inside of Fritz van Aert in the Dallara. Now, the Dallara has been traditionally a low drag car, but clearly Montoya with a good exit coming out of that second chicane, and Fritz made it quite easy for him in the end, didn't he, into the Mulsanne corner.
He's never going to fight him. Once he was down the inside, it was actually more dangerous for Fritz van Aert to actually do something about it than just give up the corner and let him go on his way.
I tell you what, watching this train of GTE cars, these cars now are so sophisticated, they're operating with so much levels of downforce. The sort of downforce levels way beyond even what a GT1 had a few years ago. And it just surprises me how they can run so nose to tail like this. They must be losing front downforce. Like, for example, this corner we're coming up to now, the right into Dunlop, you're going to be losing so much front grip here, and you're still able to run that close and not lock up the fronts and get the car turned in for the Dunlop chicane. It's quite phenomenal.
But that's the great part about GT racing, is actually, I think the teams, unlike in single-seater racing, they have to design the cars to run in traffic, don't they? Because you are always running in traffic all through the race. Maybe not it's so close in a GT car, etc., etc.
But they've got more and more reliant over the years on downforce, the GT cars. They really are aero efficient now.
However, they don't have the big front wings like an LMP1 car, which is effectively a huge front wing underneath the car, and it is still less sensitive than Formula 1, for example, which has got because we've got closed wheel arches. But you're right, and it does allow situations like this. Tinknell's now right on the back of the Corvette of Rockefeller and slipped to the inside exactly as Joey Hand did the previous lap, and it looks like he's down and he's got it done.
So the Fords have got a good run through Tinknell.
Oh, Tinknell's run wide.
Oh, he's going to get it back. Yeah,
I'm not sure, but that could actually... That's going to allow them all to...
Dixon's going to have a go now, isn't he? Dixie's got two wheels off the track, you can see.
I love this.
He's in that bit, which is the puncture zone, really. But the BMW... oh, wow.
Right, can I just ask you a question? What did you say there about the Ford guys not pushing themselves out?
That BMW he's got one Ford, he's got the second Ford into the braking zone. That is brilliant opportunism from Antonio Felix da Costa.
All came about because Harry literally got it crossed up coming out and then backed up the Corvette and then got another run at him, and then the BMW got like a 4-car slipstream there and just slingshot past them.
Yeah, Harry's going to lose another one, isn't he? Because Dixon's now coming. Oh, well, he's got the inside, so unless Dixon's got a mega toe, this could... Come on, boys, you've got to behave here on the braking zone.
I think Harry let him have that, definitely.
Yeah, he's done the right thing there.
And that just shows you how competitive this is, Karun, that you make one small error, and it was a small error from Harry, and you suddenly go from the front of the train to the back of it.
Yeah, he's lost 3 places there.
It's like the old Formula Ford days, old Formula Ford 1600 days, Alan, at Silverstone, where you pull out from the slipstream in sort of 7th position to try and overtake someone, end up 13th.
What category was that? Sorry, I don't remember it. Too long ago.
We've got Martin Tomczyk on the right-hand side. Long-time teammate, actually, of mine in previous life.
Oh. But he was in that BMW early on, wasn't he? Which now has been, I think he's in the Nick Katzberg car, which is now running second, isn't he? So that's they're having a really good run. See a bit of head shake there in the Ford garage, and they know they've lost that you know, they've had to work really hard to get that place back. And yeah, I think there's a bit of they've broken away actually, these two, haven't they? They've made a proper little gap over Dixon there. You got the Corvette.
Well, I think Dixon and Harry had to sort of held themselves up a little bit, going that side by side into the Mulsanne and Corvette and the BMW. Like you say, create a bit of a break, but you know that when they get up into traffic again, that this train is going to just close back up again.
But the BMW's got pace. I think Da Costa's got more pace than the Corvette now, because he's lashed himself on the back of Rockefeller's car now. I'd say the Corvette's the one that's struggling with pace, because if you look how much Joey Hans pulled away in 2 laps, and the fact that Rockefeller was overtaken twice on the straight in 2 laps.
I agree 100%, Alan. I think the Corvette here is the one that's lacking the pace, and he only got to the front of this through mistakes from others and the opportunism. So I think they'll all close back up again, and then they'll slip straight past him. So, Johnny, what have you been up to this weekend? You're normally a man with fingered mini pies. Well, actually, one of my Red River Sport clients was in the Aston Martin race and actually won the race in GT4, so I've been there supporting them.
Well, we've got Martin Tomczyk down in the pits, and he's with our man.
Martin Tomczyk. Well, first of all, I'd like to say welcome back to Le Mans for BMW, and wow, you guys have got some seriously good pace, and the racing is amazing out there.
Yeah, it is, indeed it is. I mean, since from the first minute on, there's really hard racing in the GT class. I really appreciate it, because it's just nice as a race driver when you have some fights, and it looks like that we are all quite equal in terms of performance. Unfortunately for us, good for Porsche, but he jumped 2 safety cars, so he's really in the lead, the leading Porsche. And we see now in the television a bunch of GT cars. So it's cool, and I'm really looking forward for my second go now.
What's the BMW like to drive around the circuit, Dozar?
Excuse me, sorry?
What's the BMW like to drive around Le Mans?
Well, obviously quite good, because the pace seems to be quite okay. We're quite happy with the car. Actually, we've been happy the whole weekend already, and it seems like that in the race we are facing the same car as we had in the free practice in qualifying. We had a bit of understeer at the beginning, but now when the temperature dropped, it looks like that it's more balanced, the car, and that's actually good for our pace.
Okay, Martin, thank you very much, and best of luck for the rest of the race.
Thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like that's going to come to them, especially if he said when the temperature's dropping. And at the moment, the track temperature is still quite high and will drop a lot more before we get to the middle of the night, when it's expected to be down about 14 degrees Celsius. Wow. So that could go in towards their area. The track actually is now 21.5 degrees Celsius.
So, Alan, do you know, sorry, Corinne, do you know in terms of compounds of tyres, I'm a little bit out of the loop in GT Pro these days. Do they have night compounds they're going to be putting on?
Yeah, they do. Yeah. They've got well, the running...
Are they able to double stint those compounds at night if it drops below a certain ambient?
They can. They have to double stint them, Johnny, with a limited number they have for the race. But in that situation, you've got roughly a soft and a medium. Quite a few teams are just running the soft even in the daytime, so they don't really have much to go to on the other side. So hopefully they get to the point where that tyre has got a wide enough working window.
But I think that the critical point is also when the track's cooler, the tyres, you can take a chance and stretch them out a bit longer, can't you? We've got a change for the lead up at the front, because the number 8 car with Fernando Alonso has come into the pits. Alonso's getting out. Nakajima is going to get back into the car. So this is the man who set the fastest time in qualifying, a devastating lap in the 3-minute 15s, and he's popped into that seat. So Alonso, I've just been in the paddock actually at Toyota, and there's such an enormous contingent of Spanish media here. It's unbelievable. And you know, it shows the power that one guy's got in a home country which has got a following. So it is good, but it's you often have to remind people that there's 3 of them in the car this week.
There's 179 others in the race, yeah. But no, I agree. I think he's bringing a very positive focus and a nice little back. We see the insides of number 91 Porsche there, just taking to the inside of the curb. He realised what was happening, and that's
Leet. And has Katzberg got ahead of him?
Katzberg's in second. This is the battle for 3rd place. We've got Leeds there in front who jumped the curb, and Errol Bamber,
is right behind. Sorry, yes, Bamber, yeah.
So we're on board with number 93, Errol Bamber at the wheel.
Well, that's what happens, as you know. I mean, obviously you guys have been prototype boys, but in a GTE car, when you come through that first chicane, the first chicane as you're coming just after the pit entrance is so fast, it's very easy to take a little bit too much curve there, bounce it sideways, and then you're struggling to stop it for the next chicane. And you know as you turn in that you can't take that curve on the right, that big red curve, that'll rip your right front wheel off. And so you have to take to the inside there. But I am astonished by how wide these boys are running, coming to the left, coming out Tetra Rouge. I mean, surely they've still got those, haven't they, Karun? Haven't they got those trenches still done?
Oh, that is aggressive. That's the SMP car. That was so aggressive.
I don't know if he actually meant that, to be honest with you, Karun. I think he got onto all the dirt and dust and then had to sort of kind of correct himself. Why he went there, I don't know. He should have waited and got, or didn't have to wait. He should have gone to the right-hand side anyway.
Say, he had the whole track of the right-hand side and the downforce to do it. So that was car, I think it was car 35. Who's driving it at the moment? It's Scheitar, isn't it? Victor Scheitar,
yeah.
Who's in it at the moment. that was seriously aggressive. Yeah, you're not going to get away with that too many times, are you? You've got to drive through penalty for 3 cars here. So number 98. And numbers.
That's the Paul Vellelan Aston Martin.
67's Tinkel's Ford, and then 44 is the LMP2 car with Bertolini in it, the Eurasia Motorsport car that's running.
Yeah, also
so what's that for? Overtaking before the end of the safety car procedure.
Yeah.
Information to the pit lane. Stewart's decision number 41. Drive-through penalty on car 67 for overtaking car 34 before the end of the safety car procedure. Car 67 drives through for overtaking car 34 before the end of the safety car procedure.
That's a real shame for Harry Tincknell there, because...
well, that's a GT car overtaking an LMP2 car as well, because he was overtaking the Jackie Chan DC Racing LMP2 of David Hannemeyer Hansen.
Well, it's actually, I'm very sure, overtaking before the line, because there is a line. So if he was like 15th in the queue, which they were at the time, then he will have overtaken before they actually got to the line.
Andy Prio there, his teammate. Now, obviously, for people at home to understand, he's going to drive straight through the pits, isn't he? He's not actually going to stop. So
you
can't do it on a stop. You can't do it on a drive change. So it is a genuine penalty for the team. Here's the radio to him.
Okay, Harry, this is not good news. We've got a drive-through penalty for overtaking a car under the safety car procedure. We have to serve it in 3 laps. We're stuck behind this car, so let's do it this lap. We've got a drive-through penalty.
I'd love to have heard his reply at that point.
Yeah, I can maybe tell you later on, but I can't imagine it'd be too positive about it. But the reality is, you've got to serve it. There's no questions about it. You just got to take it on the chin. And then from there, you've just got to work the rest of the 18.5 hours to go and push to get back into it. They're in traffic, and I think they are quicker, as we saw with the Corvette. He was quicker than the Corvette. And so maybe a bit of clear air is not a bad thing for them.
The other Toyota is also pitted now, so the Nakajima car has taken over the lead. Lopez has stayed in the car, so he's now rejoined the race 1.1 seconds behind Suzuki Nakajima.
And I noticed Alonso did a phenomenal 2-hour 45-minute stint there, and actually by the end when he pitted, he had pulled 3.8 seconds onto Lopez, so he did a phenomenal job actually.
Yeah, there was 2 safety cars in there as well. Yeah. The maximum time you can do in any 6-hour period is a 4 hour, so you've got a 4-hour maximum time limit.
But this is the Neil Yanni car, so the Rebellion, which has made a bit of a, it's trying to make a bit of a comeback after that first lap incident for Andre Lotterer. So
I didn't realise that his nose actually came off when he braked. It wasn't actually, he didn't actually hit him. It was only when you saw the onboard, Karun, that you actually saw as he braked, his nose came off from the earlier contact with the Toyota.
Yeah, and then eventually he had no downforce, so he did make contact. I spoke to Neil, we mentioned it earlier on in the race, and he did say they were surprised at how that little contact meant that the nose came off. Anyway, that Rebellion car now running 5th overall, and Bruno Senna has got out of the car, and Neil Yanni is going to get in for his first stint of this Le Mans 24 Hours. And I believe Duncan's got Bruno Senna down in the pits.
I certainly do. Bruno Senna, first of all, Karun Shandok sends love. He says hello to you. Hope you're well. But how did the stint unfold for you there?
It was interesting. The car has very good performance. Even after the incident in the first lap, the car still got some pace on it. It's it's a shame that we've been having a few troubles, some gearbox issue with the clutch and stuff like this. So has impeded our pace a little bit. I think would have been a lot closer to the lead now if it wasn't for this. But long race still ahead, 18 hours to go, and we keep pushing.
Was that why the car came in the garage very quickly? It was in and then back out within a matter of minutes. Was that a gearbox issue?
Yeah, it's a sensor issue and something we haven't had before, but it's a typical thing that happens when your car doesn't have so many miles on the development. So shame, but hey, we keep pushing. It's a long race.
Thank you very much, Bruno. Karun, there's your boy.
Yeah, I hope he's, he doesn't sound particularly happy. And he won't be, you know, they're now 2 laps behind their nearest competitors, aren't they? So they're sort of just driving around now, waiting for the people in front to have a bit of misfortune, which is not a nice feeling, is it, Alan? Like, you know, just, it's so hard to actually keep yourself motivated and going. You have to do it because that's, you know, as a professional and you enjoy driving one of the greatest racetracks in the world. But it's a different mindset, isn't it, when you know you're already a couple of laps down? Yeah.
I've been here when we had a problem after about 2 hours, and you're just driving around for 22 hours trying to get to the finish, and it is very, very difficult because if you don't feel you can gain anything out of it, they can still gain out of it. They could still be on the podium, and that's the thing. You've just got to keep on going because you never ever know what's going to happen. You just need to ask Toyota that, where on the last lap they broke down a couple of years ago, and so therefore it's not all lost, even although it seems it's all lost.
Yeah, exactly that. So up at the front now, so the timing screens have all sort of adjusted. The number 8 car, which is Nakajima, is driving at the moment, now nearly 6 seconds up ahead of Jose Maria Lopez, and they're a lap. Actually, SMP are having a good race, haven't they? We haven't really mentioned them so much recently, but
pretty strong. Better than expected in terms of performance and reliability. Talking of SMP, here's the SMP Racing LMP2 car. Victor Scheitar there is currently in 8th place. And then after that, Juan Pablo Montoya behind him. And Juan Pablo Montoya was behind him a lap ago. Hasn't really sort of gained into him. Scheitar clearly got a bit of a feel for the car now as well, and he's running pretty strongly.
And Victor Scheitar's done a lot of endurance racing in GTs and now in prototypes, and of course Montoya, like Alonso, like Button, first time here at Le Mans. So
yeah, but I have to say that Juan Pablo Montoya has done a lot of sports car racing in America. It's not his first time in one.
No.
But the thing that I would suggest to him is not to get up on that curb in the exit of the S's, or it might be his early exit out of this one.
There's some photographic evidence suggesting that Andre Lotterer may not have been entirely to blame for that first corner incident. Apparently photographs from either from the grid or from the warm-up lap show that the nose was not correctly fitted on the number 1 Rebellion, so he may have lost grip at the Dunlop chicane, and as a result just been not quite able to brake where he wanted. So there is that as he...
Right. Harry Tinkler's served his penalty, hasn't he? He's been in and out of the pits now, and that's taken him out of this little battle that we're watching. It is still a great battle there with Antonio Felix da Costa right up behind the Ford.
He's caught up on the Ford. So Joey Hand had pulled away from the Corvette.
Exactly,
and now that da Costa's got in and past the Corvette, then he's just rocketed straight up in the back of the Ford. So right now, in terms of pure pace, we heard earlier on that they said they were feeling better in the cooler conditions, which can be tiring. It can also be air induction into the engine. Gives it denser air, gives you a little bit more power. But right now they are the car that I would say has got the pure performance.
The other 2 cars that have penalised, the 98 Aston Martin, Paul Dall'Alana served his penalty, so has Andrea Bertolini in the 44 Eurasia Motorsport LMP2 car. And here, past the battle a couple of moments ago, went the SMP racing car of Igor Orodchev that was 3rd overall, and you could just see the other SMP car, Victor Scheitar, also streaming by them as the BMW starting to get a little punchy.
I think, you know, you talked about how the performance is coming towards BMW. Do you think the performance has gone away from Ford equally?
Well, it was interesting as we'll look to see. He gets a slipstream here with that big BMW, and I'll draft round the outside. This 3rd car, that's the LMP1, that's in 3rd place overall with the SMP, but still the Ford's trying to do it down the inside. However, that's it, done and dusted. So now da Costa's up another position, up into 6th in category. I do think, though, coming back to what you said, when it started to have that little drizzle of rain after about 30 minutes, then it looked like the Fords dropped off there. And so anything where you see a sort of drop, I would have said, in grip level or alternatively temperature window, then maybe it's not ideal for them.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see as the night goes on and the track temperature keeps plummeting. As you say, it's still about 6-7 degrees up on where we think it'll end up being. I wonder whether Ford are going to start to suffer. But Da Costa around the outside in Mulsanne, I mean, he's a very, very good racing driver, isn't he, Felix Da Costa? He won in World Series. He was exceptionally good in the Formula One test that he did. Yeah. Slightly bad timing that he was on the Red Bull program at a time where they were flooded with drivers, and therefore he didn't really have the timing and opportunity to get into that Formula One seat, but he does a good job in Formula E as well, I think, nowadays.
And of course, where he is now, he's a BMW factory driver, and BMW are going to really ramp up their involvement with the Andretti team for whom he drives in Formula E. So he's a factory driver here. He does the N24, the VLN, and all those races for them, and he's also racing Formula E for them. So yeah, he's got a fairly full calendar. His dance card is not going astray. And you wonder whether, at the beginning, when that track temperature drop came in, whether Ford were just on a tyre that just dropped out of its window with that temperature drop. And then, you know, if the temperature goes lower again into the evening, as it always does, maybe then their next choice of tyre for that will restore some of that performance. Tyre temperature windows are an odd thing.
Well, when you're driving around, it's so hard to tell, because if you've been in the car for 2 or 3 hours, in that time the track temperature's plummeted away, and if you're losing balance, it's quite hard to judge whether it's because of temperature related or the fact that your tires have done a double stint, you're getting the end of the double stint. Is it just a question of the tires going away? It's quite hard to actually separate the two.
Yeah, usually I found that the differentiating factor was out of Dunlop chicane. If when you went onto the power, here's the 82 BMW.
Yeah, good afternoon, you're on the quickest on track. Yeah, sounds good. At the same time, I'm trying to look after my tires a bit, but they suffered to be left behind traffic a bit.
92 Porsche, constant abuse of track limits.
Black and white flag car, 90 abuse of track limits. Black and 92 for constant abuse of track limits.
You talking to him or something?
He likes to listen to a Scot. He likes to listen to a Scot. By the way, official wielding of nephew of Marker of Doom. The garage door is down at Baicoles, and that is an official sign that the number 4 car is our first retirement of the race. We suspected it would be, but I never like to get the marker out because I don't have the Tipex of redemption with me. So,
just while we were talking there, Roman Rusinov has brought the leading LMP2 car into the pits, so they've done their 8th pit stop off the race, and still very comfortable, isn't it? Nearly 2 minutes now, the lead over the Panis Barthez car, who actually do a stop themselves, aren't they? So they've only done 7 stops.
Yes, in fact, the Panis Barthez car is up to second because the Cinetic Alpine car that was second has just stopped. Pierre Thirier stays at the wheel, Roman Rusinov stays at the wheel of the G-Drive car. So no changes there, and they've got Timothy Bourret at the wheel of Panis Barthez number 23 machine. I think that is his first stint, so I think he will stay in as well. Mima Rojas in the pole-sitting IDEX Sport car, now up to 4th place, the number 48. That's the best of, second best of the Orecas, because the leader, Roman Rusinov in G-Drive, is in an Oreca. But that IDEX Sport car got shuffled way down the pack right at the beginning of the race, and so is now fighting his way back up. Another stop for 34, Jackie Chan DC Racing. Com Ledigar taking over there as Juan Pablo Montoya pits for United Autosport, and Enzo Gilbert does also for G-Drive.
Neil Yanni's having some fun out there. He's gone out of the pits, his first stint off the race, and he's cracked on, fastest lap for that car so far, and a competitive time as well, a 3:20.0, which is basically the same time that Nakajima's done last time round. I imagine he had quite a clear lap with traffic and stuff, but and that makes it even more frustrating for Rebellion, isn't it, that they had the pace to really compete against SMP and be best of the rest behind the Toyotas. And that will be, you know, it's sort of rubbing salt in the wounds to everybody in that Rebelli motorhome.
Yeah, it is, but at this moment in time, you can only sort of try and pick yourself up. You look back at it come tomorrow morning, and you just wait and push and see what can come out of it today. As difficult as that may be. So, just going through the running order on our screen there, the bottom half of the LMP2, and you can see the leader on the Porsche GTE, 1 minute 39 now ahead of the BMW car. So. It's coming down, that one, though, because
chipping away, aren't they? It was nearly 2 minutes. It was sort of 1:51, wasn't it, at its peak? And it's now 13 seconds less. So, yeah, the Astra car, you know, they've got a buffer, but they can't take it too easily, can they? Which is why I suppose he's been using and abusing the track limits just to try and you know, get as much pace as he can. Yeah, but the thing he's got to be very careful of there is, you know, at this moment in time, he can be too careful, but he doesn't need to take too many risks, and especially risks where you could get a drive-through penalty. And so that would take away a lot of his lead if he got a drive-through penalty, much more than not running outside the track limits. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's the penalties thing that really, that's the sort of stuff that can cost you the minute and a half, can't it, on... Yeah. You know, on silly things like pit lane speeding infringements and, you know, safety car speed and slow zone speeds. It's the stuff like that which, in his position, he's better off giving away that half a second or whatever. It's the basic rules of motor racing. Keep it on the grey stuff, kid, as espoused by Doc Hudson. Don't hit stuff. Don't do dumb stuff. You know, really. That wasn't quite the talks that we got prior to the race, I've got to be honest, Martin. Should have been. And rule 1 of motor racing, don't hit your teammate. Rule 2, see rule 1. Rule 1 for me was always be quicker than your teammate. Yeah, rule exactly. 2, don't hit your teammate. I was literally about to say this. You could see where the 2 racing drivers are in this commentary box. It was... yeah, very good. So we're looking at the 92 car, who is the race leader. Obviously, Kevin Estre, who we have just been talking about. And he is about to put a lap on one of the AM cars. I can't quite make out which one. That's the Ebby Motors Porsche. That's the blue car being driven by Christina Nielsen now, the only woman driver in the race. And that's the car that Dodo Kreiheimer was trying to get around the outside when they came together. Well, let's get down to the AM pit lane since we're talking about her. That car is also being run by... well, that's been run by Ebby Motors. Proton Competition got 3 dogs in the fight, 2 in the Dempsey Proton colours, and Patrick Dempsey is with our man Duncan Vincent. Thank you very much, Martin. Yes, Patrick, things right now, very early in the race, but things are going very well, currently sitting in the lead of the AM class.
Yeah, so far so good. We're right where we want to be. You know, 5.5 hours in, we got a long way to go. But if we can maintain this, we'll be okay, you know. Yeah, I see you sitting at the back of the garage. You get quite animated. You're very much involved in everything that goes on. Oh, yeah. I like talking to the drivers and making sure they're comfortable and relaxed before they get in the car, see what they need. And I run back and forth to see if there's anything I can do to help them. I really feel for them. And the pace is really fast. And with the traffic, it's you want to stay loose and make sure everybody's okay. And I just love being here. I mean, as a fan, to be this close to the action is great. Yeah, I feel exactly the same. I'll catch up with you later on and enjoy the race. Right on. Thank you, mate. Thank you.
Yeah, Patrick Dempsey there raced here before himself, as well as then coming in with his team. Raced a lot in the United States of America in the IMSA Championship out there. And a huge fan. Liked it so much, he bought the company. Yeah, he's a proper fan, isn't he? Yeah, he's a proper fan, but he's also, you know, he comes here with a real focus in mind. It's not just a sort of part thing. He actually comes with some focus in mind. Right, talking of focus in mind, I think I need to focus on a cup of tea and maybe a little... That was a chocolate bar he pointed out, yes. By the way, for everyone who can't see. Other chocolate bars are available, but not quite as good as the ones from Scotland. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Alan. Non-stop as always. What about that restart? With them 4 abreast on the way down the Mulsanne Straight, 4 abreast on the way down to Indianapolis, Fantastic sport, great spectacle.
Oh, absolutely brilliant. Yeah, no, it's been really good. It's been very, very entertaining, and you know, looking at the number 77 Dempsey Proton car, this is, as we just mentioned, the leader of the GTE-AM category, and their team boss Patrick Dempsey was just talking to Duncan there. This is now a battle between, I think this United car has somehow slipped behind, haven't they? Because they had got ahead. I thought Montoya had got ahead of Fritz van Aert, but clearly Fritz van Aert has managed to get back ahead of Juan Pablo Montoya, which is wow, really impressive. He's now backed out of it and allowed Montoya through, so he is ahead, and he's now got the SMP LMP2 car behind.
We are just past 8:30 in the evening here trackside at Le Mans, the Circuit de la Sarthe. Sun going down just a little. There's a bit of overcast sky. It's a bit grey. No shadows really being cast, but now you can get a sense of how dark it is by the fact that those lights are really beginning to sparkle and dazzle as they come towards the camera into Indianapolis. Lena Gade joins us in the commentary position, just as she did last year. Here goes one of the SMP cars, passing the all-Dutch jumbo car. Through it goes. Lena, welcome. Good evening. Good afternoon. Oh, dear, the drama starts already. That's the LMP Dragon Speed going straight over the gravel, all the way over the top. Where was I? Lena, how are you?
All right, thank you. Good evening. I've had my first gin and tonic whilst watching this race, so everything's really good.
You wouldn't be able to do that in the old days. You wouldn't be able to do that. But you're enjoying it in a different way here this weekend.
Yep. Just like last year, I've come as a spectator to see what's going on and kind of see all my friends down the pit lane. And it's been quite interesting seeing how it's all been going on. The GT stuff is incredible. It really is.
Nuts. You can see that that BMW trying to hove its way around that 488 Ferrari. Never seen so much roll and pitch on a car. Antonio Felix da Costa, the Portuguese, up behind Antonio Giovinazzi as they come around the Arnage corner on the way up to Porsche curves. We have got some great action still to come.
Yeah, da Costa's pace is really, really impressive. He's massively hooked up in that BMW. He's in, you know, he's got past the Fords. He's broken away from them quite comfortably, and he's now chipped his way up to that Ferrari. And one thing to look at is the straight line speed. You know, last time, when obviously he's got the benefit of the toe, but that BMW, when you look at it even alongside the Fords, despite the fact that it's a big car, and you mentioned this before, compared to the Ford, it looks like it's going to eat it up. But actually, despite the surface area, it's got very, very good straight line speed, and I think, you know, it's allowing da Costa to just make these moves, and yeah, he's driving very well at the moment.
Think about the BMW with that M8. First time here at Le Mans. It's only ever done one endurance race so far in its life, and that was back in early May at Spa. But they've been running that car for 18 months. 18 months. You know the kind of testing that's needed, Lena, to get a car up to speed, up to spec, bulletproof.
Yep.
They've just got to thrash it all the time.
Yeah, they're going to have been doing their reliability tests and all their endurance testing, so testing whether it's 6,000 kilometers, 36 hours, whatever it might be. They'll have done it at a pace where they're probably on a track on their own, not necessarily with competition like this, where they're going flat out all the time. That's not to say that they're not driving flat out, but the abuse that they're putting into that car, they need to have done on a racetrack somewhere else in the world, so it's a tough one.
And Lena, just talk about, well, in this stage of the race where the sun's gone down, track temperature's falling away, we've seen Toyota and other people, you know, we've seen Toyota change the rear wing and the whole rear bodywork to make downforce adjustments. How do you, as an engineer, well, not you this weekend, but how do the engineers on the pit wall and the drivers communicate about these balance tweaks, and, you know, how do these conversations happen? Because you need to track the track conditions in Le Mans much more than you would in a shorter race, don't you?
To some extent. I mean, the drivers will have done laps and laps and laps. Hopefully they've been doing the endurance testing, so they have a good impression of what the car's like, what kind of balance it has. Le Mans is different compared to probably anywhere else you can get data from because of the length of the straights, the type of track it is, where there's different temperatures around it. The thing is that that constant communication between the driver and the engineer always exists. So they're always telling you what's going on. When it's silent, things are going well, things are going okay, but you always need that feedback from them so that you know, do I need to make a change? Is it just tyre pressures? Do I need to do something else? So. And
Da Costa, so while you were talking there, Da Costa's managed to get past that Ferrari around the outside. The Ferrari gave him the room, but Da Costa very, very good on the brakes. Clearly the BMW team quite enjoyed that. There's you know, there's a really upbeat atmosphere now. They've now got 2 cars in the top 5, and Porsche got the other 3. So really, first time out, ahead of Ford and ahead of Corvette and Ferrari.
We saw a quick glimpse of Romain Dumas getting in the number 94 Porsche 911 RSR. 2 times, of course, an overall victor. Once with Audi, once with Porsche a couple of years ago. And Romain Dumas, talk about Atlantic hopping. Going to be doing the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb in Colorado next week. He's going to be doing it with the Volkswagen, the all-electric car. Is that a bit of Audi underneath? Do you think, do you know, Lena?
I don't know.
You couldn't possibly comment. Let's leave it that way. But it's a hell of a thing to look at. I'm still on my bucket list to go to Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. What a beast. They've been very good in their wording of all of the PR and the press releases. Well, we'll see what we can do about the outright electric record that is currently held by Rhys Millen, the Kiwi. But they haven't said anything about what Sebastian Loeb's time might be able to get to, because, of course, with all-electric power, it'll have all the power, all of the time, all the way to the top, as opposed to an engine which struggles for breath.
Yeah, but, you know, everything's got a capacity, hasn't it? And, yeah, it will be interesting to see, and it's an interesting challenge to see, you know, if they get the power to be deployed all the way up the hill, because as obviously as you're climbing, you're using a lot of the energy to get up that gradient, and they've obviously tested it enough, and they feel they've got a big enough battery pack that adds weight, and it's such a complex world. In many ways, you know, when I raced in Formula E, in so many ways, when I first got in the car, you're sort of making a seat, and you're like, well, it's like a monocoque, like a GP3 size, and everything, you've got pedals, steering is all the same. But then you leave the pits, and it is a bit weird. You know, the characteristics, the power delivery, and the way he's obviously not going to be doing any energy recovery, I imagine. But just the instant torque and how you shape the power delivery and stuff, it is a different sort of beast. And yeah, it's an interesting time in the automotive world in general, isn't it, with all that stuff? Yeah, I mean, it's a different way of using some form of power to propel a vehicle, and I think it is very new. It's very different. A lot of it's being led by the automotive industry, not necessarily coming from, you know, motor racing itself. But it's the next phase for where the automotive world is going. And it's about adaptability, isn't it? I mean, what you mentioned about the Formula E, I remember when the hybrids first came in and how they had to be handled in order to be able to recuperate energy, to use it, to deploy it, the whole thing. So. Sorry, we had a car off there. There was an LMP2 car. We'll come back to it in a second, Lena. There was a P2 car, which was in this train. No, it wasn't the jumbo one. The one in front of the jumbo car. Looks like a Jackie Chan car. I don't know. Looks like. We'll find out in the second chicane. I'm starting to see a problem with commentating at night here. I've never had to do this, and this is now starting to be slightly problematic, trying to see with the headlights which cars.
You haven't been on a rally like Julian and I in the middle of Kielder when a blast of headlights comes towards you.
No, you people are mad. Yeah. Sorry, Lena, coming back to you. I mean, you know, Audi were in that era when you were at the forefront of it. They bringing out the diesel first came out, and that was like, whoa, what's happening here? Diesel and Le Mans, and then the hybrids. Have you kept track of what's been talked about this weekend for the future of sports car racing and stuff? I have. I went to the press conference. I was interested to see what they wanted to try and propose and do. In my mind, and this is my personal opinion, I think hybrids make a lot of sense. That's not to say there's anything wrong with the whole electric philosophy and Formula E. But for what we do here at Le Mans with endurance racing, hybrids are really a kind of logical thing. And to be honest, on the road at the moment, you get more hybrid vehicles than you do electric, and they're more accessible to, you know, your average public person buying a car. The technology is still relevant. Now, how it all pans out with this
the concept of the hypercar really depends on which manufacturers it attracts and who comes along, how they want to execute it. I personally think within the WEC we need to be a little bit careful of dampening down, you know, the idea of racing. You know, having a certain amount of energy to use in a lap is similar to having, well, you can only have so many litres of fuel for an entire race. It is a similar concept, but you have to be a bit careful that you don't sort of curb the technology development too much, because manufacturer or even privateer can still push the limits of what they're doing if they're allowed to. Don't dumb it down. Don't make it so that it's controlled too much or it's engineered too much.
I was saying to Julian earlier today, we could make Chandok Gate Moody Racing, make a road car that's got 200 horsepower, but we'd be given a bob that gave us another 300 brake.
Yeah.
Well, it works both ways, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, some cars here are being detuned to be able to go to Le Mans.
Yeah, but when we talk about how it's panned out over the last 5 hours, 45 minutes, and you know, I think back to one of the first things Lena said when she came in the box, the GTE Pro race has been amazing. And actually, so as much as the BOP is confusing and complicated and neon impossible for anyone in the grandstand to understand, we've still got 11 cars on the lead lap in that category.
Yeah.
Which there's something to be said for that.
I think the thing about the GT classes, have a look at what those cars are. Have a look at, if you saw them on the road, why would you buy a Ferrari? Why would you buy the Ford GT? They have got to somehow equalise those so that on track they can provide the same entertainment because there's competition between them. So yes, it's a bit difficult to understand, but as you said, they're all, you know, on the same lap. That is a huge, huge thing to do and to get right. I know there's been a lot of criticism. I know there's been a lot of complaining about, oh, well, you know, it's not completely fair. You need to try and get this kind of science right. It's not the easiest thing to do.
I remember catching up with one of the FIA guys involved in this balancing act for the GT class at the Monza Prologue last year. He looked a chastened man, and the season hadn't even started.
Yep.
Andy Prio on track, getting into that Ford number 67, taking over from Harry Tinknell. So I think this is Andy's first go today in the race, isn't it? So
correct.
He is he's going to take over. He's my old driver coach, Andy Prio. He was probably the best driver coach I had when I first came to England.
He was the best driver I ever had, because he used to drive me back from the pub on a Saturday night in the mid-90s when he was about to win the British Hill Climb Championship, because he never used to have a drink.
Very good.
As opposed to the rest of us. Meanwhile, yeah, it's an interesting also scenario, guys, Lena, for the 2024 target that the WEC, the ACO have made with regards to hydrogen. You know, hydrogen, you can either use it as a fuel inside an internal combustion engine, or you can use it to create electricity that can then power an electric motor. Talking to some of the very clever fuel guys last night, they said if it's a usage for an internal combustion engine, you can get the same amount of calorific value out of a third of the weight. So it's very interesting that way, but of course you've got to make it, you've got to store it and such like. But it's interesting times, and as always, this Garage 56 may have disappeared, but actually it's grown up and down the pit lane. Garage 56 used to be something very creative. The BRM Rover turbine car back in the 60s, Graham Hill drove it. You know, we had a
it was a hydrogen car. Somebody was talking about it, but it never happened.
No, it was supposed to come a couple of years back, and it didn't in the end.
We had a biofuel car a few years back, something so like 2003 or 4.
I think the Delta Wing was part of it, wasn't it?
The Delta Wing as well was
and then they tried to do a hybrid version of that, I seem to recall. Wasn't it? They called it Zero something Zero.
The Zeod, yes, all electric. They did the first all-electric lap of Le Mans. That was it.
It was here and did a lap, and then
that's right.
Yeah, so it was creativity at its best. Remember that also there was a class at Le Mans which was a class of efficiency, sort of my dad's era, but it's culture and the roots are there. In the meantime, Duncan Vincent is down there, inside, outside, nearby the Ford GT garage. Duncan?
It's a scrum. I'm having to push mechanics out the way to get to the main man himself, Harry Tinknell. Harry, how did the stint go? Go for it.
Yeah, so bit up and down. I mean, quickest car on track for the majority of it, which is fantastic because the 67 cars really struggled all weekend. We've sort of been near the bottom of the timesheets, which really isn't where we usually are, you know, but boys have done a fantastic job to turn the car inside out, and to be honest, in the race, the car's fantastic, best it's been, like I say, and I just had the silly drive-through. I mean, the car was going green on under a safety car restart. Car in front didn't react. I wasn't sure what to do, whether to go or wait. I went, and obviously it was the wrong decision because we got a drive-through for it, but you know, the main thing is we're quick. You know, still 18 hours of the race remaining, and we were really going into the race thinking, oh, maybe we're going to be the tortoise and hope everyone breaks down, but it seems like we're the hare now coming back through.
Now, remember you're live on the app here, okay? So we had a very calm message coming into the car from your race engineer saying, I'm afraid you've got to drive through. What was your response?
Well, I'd already been berating myself for it for about 10 laps previous because I thought it might be coming, so you just got to take it on the chin. I don't think these factory teams are too keen on you making mistakes or making excuses for your mistakes. You just got to take it on the chin, accept that you made a mistake, come in. But I knew as soon as I got back out in clean air, I had to make up for it by going quick, and at least we managed to do that. And now Andy's in clean air. We'll hunt the rest down. You know, it's a long way to go. Safety cars, everything will bring us back into it. So I'm happy where we are.
Thanks, Harry. Go and get yourself some fluid, buddy.
Cheers, appreciate it. Cheers.
Harry Ticknell talking to Duncan Vincent down there in the pits. Martin Haven said about 15-20 minutes ago the fact that at the... Oh, we've got it off with one of the United Autosports cars. Montoya, Owen and Sadalia.
Montoya,
and that's JPM in the car, and he's got off at Indianapolis. He's gone straight on into the tyre wall.
That's a slightly odd place to see a car off, because you don't normally see them that far around. It's almost like it's at the exit nearly.
Or has he had a moment on the right-hander and then cut the corner on the left?
I'm sure we'll find out. I mean, you normally see people lose it through the fast right and hit the barrier on the right. I went down the escape road into the forest one year in free practice, which was not much fun. There was a gap in the barrier, and all of a sudden I was sort of parked, ended up near all these vans, and these, not vans, but like medical vans and, you know, marshal vans. It was
now, Lena, change of nose, not because of damage, but because of downforce. What's the kind of thinking
it's very
in your
possible.
experience?
I think it's very possible. There's been lots of changes with, you know, the tail and things like that, which I found a bit confusing. I guess they've been doing it to kind of adjust the balance of the car.
Here we go. So we haven't seen him go, you know, the actual shunt. We're on board a GT car, in fact, the 67 car, Andy Prio. And the mechanics at United seem just as confused. Montoya stayed in the car. He's hoping, and the digger's there to pick him up. So hopefully it's not going to be too long. But obviously this is not what he wanted on his Le Mans debut. The slow zone is on at the moment. Track map and the timing in the commentary box seems to have disappeared, but
it's on the run down to Indianapolis, and then it finishes on the exit of Arnage.
Right, okay. Toby Booty is scrambling all over the commentary box with a TV remote. I'm not sure how well it's going, but he's as he turns one off,
I'll turn the right one on and the wrong one off.
The other one goes off, so it's all very amusing in here. But yeah, there you go.
Okay,
anyway,
it'll
we're back on now.
It'll all get sorted. So there's that slow zone from...
we've got an engineer in the commentary box. It'll be fine.
We have indeed. We have indeed.
On-off button, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Lena. Yeah, just embarrass me. I'll just dig a hole with my JCB bucket and disappear into it.
So slow zone, it's clear. We're going to see it on board this Toyota. So as he comes into it, there you go. The first sign saying the slow zone there, and they come into the straight after Mulsanne. So you get next slow, which means at the next marshal's post you've got the start of the slow zone, and then the actual zone starts. So that allows the drivers the distance between two marshal's posts effectively to slow the car down to 80 kilometers an hour.
I got interrupted by Montoya having his moment in the gravel. Martin Haven mentioned the fact that the Andre Lotterer first corner accident with the loose nose was, we have since learned, the fact that the nose on the Rebellion was probably not fixed at the very start of the race. So once it got up to full racing speed, the downforce, it came out of the catches at the top. And Lena, you've sort of discussed with people, you've seen videos, you've heard that the nose wasn't properly attached and it actually came off to then hit the Dragon Speed car.
Yeah, so I mean it did look odd. it did look a little bit like Andre had tapped the back of the Toyota, but when you actually look at the video, it does look like it was already coming down and off of the actual location. So normally there's 2 latches and then there's a couple of pins, and the pins are what locate and hold the nose on. The latches are like the secondary bit. They're sort of the safety part of it, but they're not the essential way of maintaining the nose on there. So if it was just kind of sitting on there, it's lucky that it didn't come off earlier than that, or that was a much bigger incident.
Yeah, I mean, how much does a nose weigh, say, give or take?
I mean, there's going to be some ballast and things in there. Let's call it 30 kilos. It can be that much, but with the momentum that it would have had, it's going to be going some.
That's bad luck. That's real bad luck. Andre, I mean, you've worked with him. I've watched him. I've commentated on him. What a fighter! What a battler!
Yeah. In Andre's defense,
you're fighting him for position. You're fighting him for position. There were 2 Porsche, right? Are there 2 Porsche right behind me? FM 93 and 91. Copy.
So that's a radio message to the 81 car, currently 2nd place in GTE, and you can see there the 93 car with Patrick Pilet right up behind him. Patrick Pilet was in the car earlier on, so he's now had a little break and got back in it, and he's chasing Martin Tomczyk, Lino.
Yeah, so knowing Andre as I do, he doesn't often make mistakes. That did look a bit like he had. Having said all of that, when he needs to go and chase, and especially at that stage of the race, there's no question about it. You tell him to go off and go and get to the back of the pack, he goes off and just does it.
Okay then, we've still got a slow zone at the far end of the circuit. We are riding on board with the number 93, Patrick Pilet, revving it up. The flat 6, best sounding motor car in the department here at Le Mans, trying to go around the outside of the BMW Stuttgart, trying to go around Munich. This, though, is the leading car, Jose Maria Lopez. In the car, just about to shut the door, tear off being removed from the windscreen. The mechanics just checking that there's no pickup or plastic bags or leaves or twigs or anything in the front end. Back on board with Pilet. Great racing, flat out.
And there's the SMP car behind. I mean, Lena, what do you make of them? Because they're running 3rd at the moment. It's a really good race, isn't it? They're only 1 lap behind Toyota on a, you know, you're talking about a privateer team when their first real go at an LMP1 program, taking on a mighty factory outfit. I mean, I'm massively impressed with how competitive they've been so far.
Yeah, I think we've been spoiled a little bit by the factory teams being in LMP1 racing and sort of dominating what's been going on, and the privateer field sort of fell away a little bit. This year it's obviously incredibly healthy, it's come back. There's a clear difference in the performance between the factory hybrid and the privateer car. But as you say, to this point, to be a lap behind, to be pacing pretty well, they've got to just make sure they make all the right decisions. You know, it's very possible they're on the podium, a likely 3rd, possibly a 2nd, maybe. You never know.
Yeah.
They've just got to, you know, keep going and keeping it clean, and yeah, it is impressive to see. Yeah,
and for them to bounce back after the incident at Spa, I'm sure you've seen the pictures, as all the sports car fans around the world. You know, the car flying off at the top of Radion, in case you haven't seen it. I suggest you go on the internet and have a look, because it's pretty dramatic. And they've done well to bounce back from that, haven't they? They raced with the same Le Mans spec body kit. They've made, I believe, some modifications which the FIA have allowed them to do within the homologations for safety reasons, understandably. And it's nice to see them sort of bounce back from that. And here is somebody who is in trouble.
That the Dragon Speed car? Yes, indeed it is. Duncan, are you down there? Can you see what's going on?
I'm down here. There's a lot of head shaking. I haven't had an official word yet, Toby, so I'm not going to go too keen at saying what it is, but they're down beside the drive shafts.
Well, they
back off, so yeah.
Sorry, Dunk. Yeah, well, they were just having a replay on the telly of it running on at the first chicane. That was 2, 3, 4 laps ago, and it just looked a bit coasty, freewheely there, didn't it? So if it is a transmission and he hits a false neutral,
but then
you ain't going to stop the car.
But he's driven it back to the pits after that. I mean, that's the first corner at Team Radio.
The Porsche right behind me is pretty quick on the straight line speed. He's catching up quite easily in my slipstream. Copy, Martin. Keep your head down. Try to fight him as good as you can. No risk, no risk.
So, as an engineer, when you get that message from the driver, I mean, there's not much you can do, is it? You know, what are you going to give him, another 25 horsepower? So,
yeah.
How do you react?
Only, hey? 18 hours to go.
Yeah.
It's not going to be won immediately here. You have got to keep them thinking positive, thinking about where they need to be. As they said, don't take any risks. There's no point fighting that Porsche if it's faster. Let it go by. But keep your average speed, keep your average pace. Make sure that you're still in the competition.
Signatech Alpine has got out of the slow zone, given it a great boot full of welly, and looped it.
And that's a